afternoon, and welcome to our Glendale City Council workshop. This meeting is for council members to review and discuss important issues, projects, and future council meeting agenda items. It's a work study session only and allows the council to hear input from city staff. No action will be taken at this workshop, and there will not be an opportunity for public comment. This meeting is streaming live on Glendale's Facebook and YouTube pages and the city's cable television station, Glendale Channel 11. Thank you for joining us.
And good afternoon. Welcome to Glendale City Council Workshop Session, April 23rd, 2024. This meeting is called to order. Attendance roll call is not necessary because everybody's here. If you'd make note of that, please. And then we're taking things out of order. We're going to go to item number 6 first, if I'm not mistaken. So, Ms. Bauer, if you'd introduce item 6, and then we'll revert back to 1, 2, on up to 5. Ms. Bauer.
Desert Diamond Arena Improvements Update.
Well, good afternoon, Mayor and members of the council. We have a familiar face joining us today to give us an update on the remodeling plans for the Desert Diamond Arena. Dale Adams, who's the general manager and been with, I think, with us now for what, Dale, at least 6 years?
About 8 years.
8 years. So I know he's a familiar face to everybody here. We thought this would be a good time to update. There's been a lot of work that's been taking place over the past year, getting prepared for this. As you can imagine, like any major redevelopment or remodeling project, is you still have to maintain operations, keep moving forward. So that's what's added a layer of complexity to this. But at this time, I'll turn this over to Dale, and he'll walk you through the presentation.
All right, thank you, Kevin. Mr. Mayor, Vice Mayor, council members, it's great to be here, great to see everyone again. And I think this is a very positive thing for the arena. I know over the past years we've done so much to kind of make this arena a success in the Westgate area, and I'm really happy to say we've made some significant progress in regards to moving forward with the renovation of the arena. Again, it's all about improving customer service, improving revenues, and making it a better experience for everybody, and modernizing the building a bit. Obviously, you've seen on the introduction the authorization, the council, as you discussed it in the executive session, and obviously we're moving on. So, Don. Again, this is about, we talk about a dedicated partnership, and this is something we started back in 2016. In this particular case, we've really developed, we feel we've developed an outstanding relationship with the city. It's a historic and strong relationship, and we want to make these improvements moving forward, which kind of align with where we've been going from the beginning, which obviously, as you can see on the screen there, since 2016, we were able to work agreement with the city where we've paid the city approximately $11.4 million. And now with this new ground lease agreement, have agreed to pay more, and both parties are putting money into this renovation to upgrade the 20-year-old building. As part of this strong team that we have, a lot of experience, new approach. You have Anthony James Partners. They're handling a lot of the digital. You have Nations Group, and they're our owner's rep. Obviously, the city, everyone's been working together with this. HOK is our architect. We have Forward Associates, which is a new bit of a wrinkle. They're somewhat of food and beverage experts, architects, kind of thrown into one. It gives us that European touch that we wanted to do something a little bit different. And then obviously our ACOM Hunt is our construction general contractor. The strategic objectives, and again, what we looked at here is we need a new modern look. We need to move on from what it was. Again, it's a 20-year-old building. We want to elevate the experience for everybody, and that's part of what this renovation is all about. How do we elevate that experience? And we call it 100% fan-facing improvements. So everything really is around how do we make it better, faster, easier for the fans. Again, as it mentions on here, upgrading the physical appearance of the building, increasing speed of service, getting away from the old concession stands that are belly up that takes a while to get your drink or your food or whatever it is. This renovation is meant to make it more appealing and faster, which enhances a lot of the opportunities for people to enjoy themselves a little bit more and see more of the show instead of sitting in line somewhere. Another option that we have here is, with this better experience, is really upgrading this product so that everybody that comes to the arena can have their own VIP experience. It's almost like a tiered level premium offering for everybody, and we'll get into that shortly. Don? And again, experiences for everyone. That's what we looked at when we first talked to us. What is the better experience for everyone? New concessions, products, and speed of service, as I mentioned, and greater convenience. This is going to be, I'm going to go through a list of the areas that we're going to look at, or that we're going to have renovations on. These areas are going to be basically the lower service level on the floor. It's going to be the main concourse where you walk in on the main area. And it's going to be the level, we'll call it level 3, the upper suite level. I'll mention now the second level, or the lower concourse, or lower suite level, will get a refresh and is really just a small part of this whole project. Yeah, go ahead. You know what, let's go, sorry, Don, let's go back. So we can read through each one. Again, if we go back, we're going to start with the lower level, the storage tunnel, arena floor level. We're going to take part of our storage and make that into a grab and go. On the floor, we can hold approximately 2,500 people for any one concert or event. And there's limited options other than walking up the stairs to try to go to the concourse if you need something. So we've actually going to repurpose part of a storage area we have since the team moved out. We have this extra storage area, and we're going to take advantage of it by creating a grab and go off the main concourse. All these I'm going to show you a picture and a diagram later on in the presentation. The second level, which is the main concourse, you have the former team merchandise store. That we're going to create a new experience. It'll be a meeting space. We're going to add restrooms. We're going to add, it's going to have its own bar, and it'll seat about 120, 150 people, depending on where we end up with the final configuration. But that will be able to use and rent out 24/7, 365 days a year. That's always option. Before this time, we couldn't open up any part of the building if there was a concert in there, because the concerts kind of take up everything. This one is going to be a separate space, and it'll also double as a pre-event premium upgrade for some people if they want it. So come hang out early in this area and then enjoy the concert as you walk in. So that'll be a new opportunity. The executive loge boxes, these are the boxes come in off the main concourse on, we call it Gate 4. That's the north side of the building facing Westgate. And as you come in there, there's about 14 different loge boxes, which are currently there. We're going to upgrade them, new motif. We're looking at some type of soundstage type configuration, but obviously upgrade the look, the feel, and make it even more presentable than what it is now. Main concourse, we have 6 areas, 6 stands. We're going to create new grab and go. Some will have beverages and hot food. Others will have beverages, kind of like a convenience store type. Walk in, grab it, and again, speed of service, walk out. The main entrance, we have 2 more bars. You see the bars there in the past. We're going to redo those. They just don't work well. They're too slow, so we're going to redo those for a quicker guest experience there also. Done. The west side, the upper suite level on the west side is going to be called the network suite level. It's going to be broken down into smaller suites that are now, right there now we have larger suites. We're going to break them down, create smaller 8-person suites, at least in the middle. Some of them will keep on the ends. And behind it will be an open area with bars, meeting spaces, couches, that type of thing. On the other side, on the east side, we're going to call it our social club, and that'll be just seating, and then behind it, it'll be all wide open. Obviously, we'll have some kind of curtain or divider that'll create a blackout for the shows if they need a blackout. But that's another social area that we'll sell tickets in 2s, 4s, 6s, whatever, but it's just seating, no suites. So that's going to be kind of a fun, more social open. So 2 totally different products than what we have now, which I think is going to add to the value of the arena and the experience of the fans, and still augment the suite level below that. So we still have the 1 suite level. We're going to keep those suites. Technology-wise, obviously we have the digital screens. We're adding new digital screens, touchless checkout systems. That means you're typically, right now we've been going through a few systems where you just set down your item, it calculates it automatically, and then you pay and leave. We're seeing about a 10-second transaction on the average. We're trying to decide which one is best for us in the business as we move forward. So certainly an opportunity. Again, speed it up. We don't want people standing in line when they want to be watching the show. That's the bottom line. And again, club suites, memberships, general admission, it's an opportunity for everybody, and it's really an interesting concept that Forward brought to us, where everybody has a shot at some type of premium. We all want premium. We all want to have some type of upgraded experience, and this is going to give it to us with these different tiers, different levels, different clubs and options that you have to upgrade. You don't have to just, it isn't like I have a seat and then I have to buy a suite. Not everyone can afford a suite. I can't afford a suite. I don't expect everyone else to be able to, but as a business, people will still require the suites and think it's a great opportunity. But now we're going to have several other different levels that general admission person can, hey, I want an upgrade here. I want to come in early in the VIP club. I want another upgrade in another club, or I can do something else. So it's kind of giving everybody an upgraded experience if they want it, and more affordable instead of it's either I'm not paying anything, you get what I get, or I got to pay a lot and get to there. It's all the stuff in between. We think it'll make even a better experience. So the 3 levels, like I mentioned before, you have the floor level, which is the stage level on the floor. You're going to have the main concourse level. That's the main one. Then you're going to have that upper suite level that I just mentioned. And we're going to go through each one right now, and I can explain in general. So what we'll do is I'll show you a diagram. We get some bullet points, and then I'll show you an artist rendering of what we think it's going to look like. We hope it's going to look like. So first of all, the arena floor level, this is we're calling it at this time, grab and go. And again, where you have access from the floor. Now, on the floor, as you can see on the diagram right now, in the upper sections, stages on the right-hand side, there is another club we'll have open. That isn't part of this renovation at this point in time, but it will be open. But to service that many people, we really need more points of sale. And this is going to allow us to do that. So prior to this time, the area that's shown in white there, that we're going to be our grab and go, this was all storage. Again, it's adding 1,500 new square feet. It'll have 10 new double door refrigerators. And again, frictionless means you just set it down, it calculates it, you pay for it, and you're out quick. So in, out, quick. An amenity I think that a lot of people would want if they want to be on the floor and see their act instead of sitting in line somewhere. And this is the artist rendering of that area. If you walk off the floor, refrigerators to the right, you're going to pay on the or on the left, you're going to pay on the right. And actually, this is a flexible area because as soon as the show's over, we have to open up that back door so we can actually get our chair carts out. So we'll double duty on this one and make sure we can efficiently move everything off the floor when we need to. But in the meantime, prior to that, it'll be this great little spot that people come in. Yes, sir.
A question for you. Last year, I think we were in Kansas, and we had a chance to look at an arena down there, and they had something as similar to this grab and go, but there wasn't an attendant that worked it. People scanned themselves. Is that the same idea?
This is a little different right now. We're thinking that is, you have various different types. One, Amazon is one. I can't remember the other one. But some of those where you check in, you walk in, you grab your stuff and walk out. And there's a little bit of discussions in the industry as to which is actually faster. If I can walk in, grab my stuff, set it down, pay for it, I'm not checking in. I don't have to check in. So 6 one, half a dozen the other. But what you're talking about, I want to call it like the Amazon, or I think it's just walk in, just walk out. Those there are a little bit more expensive also. So we're trying to balance out the cost of doing this.
Thank you, Mayor. So, yeah, we were in Kansas City, but I don't know if it's something to do with the liquor laws in Arizona, but I mean, they have this at Footprint Center and other places that I've been, and there's an attendant there because if you're buying alcohol, it has to be open, and I think that has something to do with our liquor laws. So if there's any alcohol consumption, there probably has to be somebody in there to make sure that whatever the container is that it's open when you walk out with it. Is that how that works?
That's correct, yeah. So
Okay.
we'll always, anytime any alcohol, we will have someone there checking IDs, making sure everyone is properly.
Oh, I didn't even think
a
about
lot
checking IDs. I know that they make sure that it's open, I guess, because they don't have packaged liquor license. They have license to serve open beverages. So-
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So we'll have someone there checking that.
And
And
think about the
typically when you
IDs.
buy it, they take the top or they pop it for you. Or a lot of acts now are going to pour only, which means they have to pour it into a cup because the act doesn't want it in a bottle or anything like that
Throwing
too.
the cans.
That's what they
Alright,
say.
Thank you.
Okay, main concourse level. And again, there's a lot going on this level. I'll try to go through this. If you have any questions, you can ask. It's fairly simple. Basically, it's a big upgrade, but the bottom line is we have a lot of things going on. And tried to outline them here a little bit. So 2 different things. The 6 notes that you have there, the 6 areas are the upgrades. The numbers you see on the spaces are more for scheduling. And just to talk a little bit about scheduling, the whole focus here is going to be we don't shut down, we schedule around all our events so that we can continue with the renovation and finish it up by early 2025 without shutting the building down. That's the aim here. That's going to be the bigger challenge. Right now, we're looking at all these different ones. You have the 2 inner bars, you have the lobby bars, which I mentioned briefly. You have the loge boxes, we talked about that. The tower meeting room, which is the ex merchandise room, the grab-and-go concessions, and then you have some stands that are going to be just refreshed. Go ahead. All right, so again, this is the meeting and pre-event room space. And this space here is it's twofold. Like I said, mentioned earlier, twofold. Part of it is we can book it with special events, somewhere 120, 150 people, depending on the configuration, any time of year, totally separate from what we do in the arena. On an arena show day, this can be an upgraded VIP early entrance area that keeps them in that one spot, so the act isn't upset that someone's in early because they don't like people getting in early, but they'll be able to hold in here, enjoy themselves. We have a bar in there, we have restrooms, so it's a very comfortable space. And this is somewhat what it'll look like. And again, these are artist renderings. We're still working on completing some of those too. But as you can see, you got bar, you got restrooms, you got an open area. We can have meetings in there. We'll have some digital in there. So it's a new aspect that we have not had in this arena before. Next, again, we mentioned the loges. Again, really cool opportunity to take these loges that we have now and create a better experience for these people here. And again, it's a new vibe. We're kind of taking a sound studio look, which is kind of cool. And again, these loges seat around 4 people per loge. So easy access off the main concourse, and you get the perfect view for an end stage. And this is the look. So as you can see on the right-hand side, that's the look coming off into the main gate area, a better look than what it is now. And then inside, you have that kind of up front, in your own little space. They'll have their own refrigerators and things, so that'll be upgraded. Like it says, a very intimate and premium experience. The main concourse grab and go. So you have 4 of them that are the 4 in the middle, if I can say it that way. We talk about frictionless, which you just mentioned. You have different locations. You're adding 20 additional points of sale, which the key is for quick service, you need more points of sale. And this will be kind of a convenience store walk-in, walk-out opportunity. And then on the corners on the left side, which are the north side of the building, you're going to have grab and goes that you'll walk around the corner. It'll have hot food and drinks also. This is the inside grab and go kind of convenience store look to it. You walk in on the sides, grab whatever you have. It'll have snacks in the middle, drinks on the outside. Designed to increase the throughput and maximize points of sale, and basically just do business quicker. Quicker, faster, get you back to your seat. These are 2 new center bars. Right now there's no bar there. There's a temporary bar. We don't have anything permanent right now. At this point in time, we'll add these 2 bars to it. Probably be more liquor bars than anything else, because that seems to be something we've been deficient with before. So we'll add those. They'll each have about 8 points of sale. And again, it's meant to speed up service and get people what they need quicker, faster, and get them back to their seat. So that's somewhat what it'll look like. Main entrance bars, again, they're still there now. This is an upgrade to the bars. What we experience when people come in, the bars get built up because it takes too long. The crowds get too long, and obviously then it can't get you to your seat when you need to get to your seat. So this will speed service up here. We're going to add additional points of sale, and this will speed it up and kind of promote people going around the corners, getting to the rest of the concessions areas and bars, so they can get those and get back to their seat. And this is somewhat will look like we came up with this the other day because we really didn't have a overall drawing right then. So it'll look somewhat like this here. Again, ease of access, support, quick, get them in, get them out, get them to their seat. The creation, here's the new 2 club concepts I tried to explain. Again, on the east side, you have the social club. On the west side, you have the network lounge. Go ahead. So on the network lounge, now right now these are all 12 to 24 person suites. So we're going to keep the suites on the ends, and in the middle, in this case, you're going to have 16 8-person suites in the middle. Again, everything gets upgraded. The seats, the experience, they'll all have refrigerators, but behind them is the experience that everyone wants. So networking is business or friends or whatever. You have 2 bars. You have a food option in there also. So these 2 areas will be, could be, and probably will be all-inclusive food and beverage. And so the entrance will look something like the piece on the left, and then on the right, somewhat like that. We're trying to decide on the design, the lighting, and that right now. On the social side, again, a little bit different concept. No suites. It'll be wide, other than the corners. It'll be wide open seating, and then just behind that, you'll have a wide open area where you're going to have your bars, your hangout area, a space for socialization and being able to enjoy, your friends and on a more intimate experience. Somewhat like this here. Obviously showing the 2 bars, but it'll have more open feel to it. Other enhancements on the main concourse. So I'm back to the main concourse. Obviously everything's going to get painted. We have new painting. Digital signage will be in those areas that the arrows show. So in the front main gate 4 area and on the east and west sides. And then we'll upgrade all wayfinding, theming. So everything will have a theme. Everything, the wayfinding will be new. it'll be a kind of a new experience there too, but hopefully more efficient, more fun, and something that really gets people where they want to go and gives them a good experience. Again, this is a little bit about the main entry. So we're going with a larger digital screens. We're going to put on the main entry and in gates 4 and 6. You know, as you can see, bigger screens. And everything will get repainted too. Enhancements outside, obviously, we're looking at the color of the arena. Let's change the color. Let's get away from the past, and I think that's been our focus. The past is the past. It's 20 years. We're done with it. Let's move forward and see what we can do. So some of the things we're going to do is obviously paint the arena, change the color, get rid of what I call the penitentiary gates. They drive me crazy. It's the gates out front, create a more open experience. Not associated with this project, but we're also looking at faster ingress with new magnetometers. They got a lot of new technologies now that'll get people in quicker. It's another thing that we're working on also. Not associated with the project, but something that'll go along with this as we move forward. Again, exterior painting, gate removal, just a new look for what we think and what was in the beginning the anchor for the whole Westgate area. It's something I think everyone can be proud of, and we hope to kind of keep building on that as the years go by. Project Start, right now, we've been working on this for quite a while, the last year or so. Construction will begin in June, and right now scheduled to end sometime in February of 25. Like I said, we're not shutting down the building at all. We're going to try to work around all the events, which will be interesting. Should be a lot of fun. We'll try to figure it out, but that'll be the biggest challenge. Shutting down different areas. Probably the first thing we're going to do is shut down the upper suite level, because that's going to take the most work, and we're going to push everyone into the lower suite level. And then for the main concourse, we'll probably shut down quadrants as we go ahead and renovate those. But all this time, trying to keep all the events in there as we book them. Again, in summary, I think we can read through this, but the renovation of the key stakeholder venue located in the heart of the Westgate District will continue to support future entertainment opportunities, including popular concerts, family and sporting events. And I think in the end, it's being part of what we believe is Arizona's true entertainment destination, and that's what we feel this building is the anchor of that, and that is something we're really proud of, and hopefully you are too.
Thank you, Mayor. I think you've come up with a winner. It really looks very nice, and I love many of your concepts. In all the renderings that I saw, they all look so dark. Will the interior be that dark?
Mr. Mayor, Councilwoman, it's meant to be more clubby, probably not as dark as it's shown there, but not bright yellow like it is now. So yes, the answer is a little bit more kind of your club and your place to go, not as dark as the renderings. Renderings a little bit darker than what it'll be.
Second question relates to your presentation. When you talk about strategic objective and fan experience, and your last bullet point says improvements will differentiate this venue in the marketplace. Exactly how are you differentiating yourself from other venues in this marketplace?
Well, a big part of what it is, and that's where Ford Associates comes in, and with their concept and new ideas and thoughts, and we're working with them in Europe too, is the upper suite levels, that network and social lounges, which you don't really see. You see somewhat little concepts of this elsewhere, but nothing really like this. And it's not just hey, it's a suite area and I hang out in a buffet or whatever. It's more premium, more upscale, more face-to-face experiences throughout that whole social and networking area. So that's something you really don't see in a lot of venues. The grab and goes you do, yes. You know, the new event space that's in the merch store, no, you don't, or you do see that in some places, but really most of them are used for merchandise stores. Well, it's an opportunity for us to use it as a separate event space that we haven't done before.
I do have one more follow-up question. A lot of the concerts, when they come to Desert Diamond, the performers and promoters like to sell their gear as well. Where will they be set up?
Pretty much where they sell now. So this
Okay.
doesn't change that. Actually, we hire a company that sells for them. And typically they'll sometimes, depending on the demand, right? So some shows know they're going to sell a lot, some don't. But our company will sometimes show up with a trailer in the Westgate Plaza area there, and also have areas on the east and west side of the venue where they sell merch too. We probably do better merch numbers than I would venture an easy guess, probably better merch numbers than 90% of the country, just because of the group we have.
Last question for all the customers out there. You're going to be raising price points after the renovation is done.
There's no plan on raising any price points for food and beverage at this point in time. Eventually, I assume they will if everyone else does. But I think right now, no, there's no plans. The plan is to let's get them the food and drink they want so they can get them back to their seat. There's no reason to use this as an excuse to just blatantly raise pricing.
What about ticket prices? Are they scheduled to go up?
Ticket prices are really in the hands of the act. The act dictates what price they want to sell their ticket for because it's their brand. And that's totally up to them.
All right. Thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
Good to see you. Thanks for the presentation. I do have a few questions. If I want to make sure I understand this right. We have 2 suite levels, of course, in there. The upper suites are going to become the social and the networking spaces, east and west, or west and east, and there'll be a couple of suites at each end
Correct.
on that level. And then the lower suite level, those are going to stay suites like they are, just get refurbished or
Correct.
whatever, but not much change on that level.
Correct.
Excellent. Will the scoreboard be remaining or?
Remaining.
Remaining.
We'll keep the scoreboard.
Okay, that's probably
That's-
the finest scoreboard in arena football out there.
I love that scoreboard.
We love that scoreboard. We got a smoking deal on it too.
That's right.
Let's not forget that. And then on the main concourse level on the west side, I know in past the idea has been tossed around to maybe open it up to the outdoors to the west and maybe have some indoor-outdoor dining concepts or anything. Is any of that included at this point? Or
At this point, no. We tried to fit everything in the budget, and I think when we first looked at it, we said, wow, here's what we want. And they said, well, that's like $100 million. Okay, so we squeezed it down. We think we're making impact what we got. But I have to say, as we move forward over the years here, we're going to ASM as part of the our operating opportunity is to look at different areas and create these areas ourselves. So we'll always look to do that. It's not part of this presentation at this point in time. Simply we were trying to fit it in. The $40 million doesn't go as far as it used to, I think.
Okay, thank you. I'm glad to see that we're not going to stop at this point, but we're going to keep our eyes open and utilize opportunities we might see going forward. Lastly, I just want to compliment you in particular, but ASM and formerly AEG on what a terrific job you've done managing that arena for our citizens. It's in very good shape, and in no small part because our management company has kept it in good shape, and I think that our patrons respect our arena and take care of it while they're there too. And I'm glad to see that we're going to be able to present this new upgrade, and I've been totally pleased with the extra events that we've been able to have once we got the bottleneck of scheduling taken care of. And I hear good things from our residents about their experience out there, so keep it up and thank you.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Good afternoon, Mr. Adams. Thank you for the presentation. Just to tail off of what Councilmember Turner said, I mean, we were certain we were making the right choice. Those of us that were here, one of the goals, at least in the initial 2015 of voiding that initial contract, was to get the control of the arena back under Glendale, because it is an asset to the city and to the community. So, and nothing like having a decision that you made 10 years ago almost validated by what's happened since then. I mean, we're absolutely made the right choice with at the time AEG and ASM. You guys are doing a great job. I did have a question. I know there was some discussion about doing something where I've seen in other, where you can close off the upper levels, where you're going to be able to draw maybe a concert that would only draw maybe 8,000 or 9,000 people, and the performers don't want to perform in front of a bunch of empty seats up high. So is that going to be part of this, where you can close off maybe some of the upper level stuff, so it doesn't look like empty, it's just curtains or something that goes around?
Actually, we have that capability now. So
Okay.
yes, that's not specifically a part of this, but it will be a part of it. And the challenge, like anything else, when you shut, how many seats do they need? How many can they sell? It's all part of the act, the promoter, and what we do to make sure there's a right fit, to your point. And I think at this point in time, we have that flexibility, and we will continue to do so.
To be able to attract acts that wouldn't be able to draw 16,000 people, but maybe half that amount. And then with the more opportunities, I love the grab and go and the speed idea, because there's nothing worse than somebody waiting in line forever and missing part of a show to try to get a cocktail, and then they don't go back either, because they don't want to miss any more of the show. So the faster they're able to be served, the more money they spend, and that's good for everyone. So, and the last question I had, there's and I don't know what it's called anymore. It's had a couple of different names. It's the outdoor area up on that lower suite level. Are there any plans to do anything
Oh, the
with
terrace on the upper suite level, the deck outside?
The outdoor terrace where and I didn't see that, but is that going to remain? Is that going to be used? What's going to happen to that
It's
space?
going to remain. That's something. It's the Desert Diamond Terrace right now. We're going to work on it, but that's not part of this project. The initial thought was we build it up from the bottom all the way to the top, but there wasn't enough money in there to kind of get to that point. So at this point, we're going to do the lower merchandise store concept down there with a meeting space, and then we're going to figure out separately how to upgrade that terrace area.
All right, thank you. So, Mayor, if I could, will it still be programmed on event days, or probably not for Rattlers games and that sort of thing, but for concerts, you can go out there and get a drink? Will it still be programmed to be able to be used, or will it be closed down until it's renovated?
So that's an interesting question, council member. The idea is that it's probably one of the better spots in the building, even though it's outside.
I like it.
It's a really cool spot. It's hard to get people there because there is a confusion of the landing. It's part of a suite level, although it's open to the general public. So it's more of a marketing opportunity for us to start generating that. The only time it's really shut down is inclement weather, or if it's a fact that we know we're not going to get a lot of people out there. But we need to do a better job marketing. That's our next focus after this. Say, all right, how do we get people out there? Because it's a cool spot.
Yeah, it's a very cool spot.
Yeah.
So I just was curious if it was remaining. Okay, that's it for me. Thank you.
Look like I have any other questions.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Ms. Bauer.
Department of Housing and Urban Development, Community Planning and Development Grant Investment Recommendations.
Mayor, members of the council, here to provide staff report on item number 2 today is our Director of Community Services, Jean Marino.
Thank you, Mr. Phelps. Joining me to lead today's presentation is Mr. Hess, which you've all seen before. He's our revitalization administrator, and I'd also like to introduce you to Trelise DeLeo, who is our grants supervisor, and the two of them together will be presenting today's information.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Moreno. Good afternoon, Mayor, members of the council. Today, we will be requesting consensus direction to move forward with CDEC approved allocations of FY 24-25 Community Planning Development, Home Investment Partnership, and ESG program funding, and also reallocations of prior year funding for new activities. As part of that discussion, we'll be presenting some key accomplishments that we've had over the last year, our analysis of the ongoing needs, and then we will be requesting consensus direction. So one of the key accomplishments that we've had over the last year is some partnerships that we've had with some private developers, private and nonprofit developers who have received low-income housing tax credits from the Arizona Department of Housing. Currently, we have 5 such projects that we've partnered with under construction that will realize almost 1,400 affordable units in the city. We have directly contributed approximately $2.2 million in city funds, about $12 million of some of our federal allocations, and this has resulted in just over $500 million of new residential development in the city. We've also continued to make strides with our homelessness response through our Homeless Master Services Agreement. I'm not going to read every single one, but in total, we provided over $63,000, the city and its partners, in various comprehensive services, resulting in over 1,500 individuals rehoused through the Alliance. We have also transitioned to a new funding source, which came before the council in the fall, to use our Home ARP allocation, and that has been transitioned over to a performance-based contract. We are also continuing to operate through our subrecipient partner, New Leaf, our home tenant-based rental assistance program. 50 households have been assisted, 16 of which have successfully graduated and transitioned over to permanent housing. A New Leaf continues to perform well in terms of the time it takes to transition people through the program, and we are recommending that additional funding be allocated to this program, and that is consistent with current council consensus.
Any question? Good.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. It's with regard to this slide. How much are we allocating currently for this program?
Mayor, Councilmember Clark, we have allocated all of our complete home allocation, so that's about $700,000 per year.
So right now, we're seeing 700,000 go toward this program. And you recommend additional funding. How much additional funding and where do you expect it to come from?
Mayor, Councilmember Clark, the current council policy is to allocate all home funding to the tenant-based rental assistance program, including the part of the administrative funding.
I didn't hear all of that. Could you repeat it, please?
Yes, Mayor, Councilmember Clark, current council policy direction is to allocate all of the city's home funding, home allocation, which is approximately $700,000, to sustain this program, and that will be the recommendation in this presentation.
And that's the additional funding you're asking for?
Mayor, Councilmember Clark, yes.
So you're asking for an additional 700,000? From the
Yes,
home
Mayor,
program.
Councilmember Clark, that's our home allocation that's coming to us through Maricopa County as a pass-through entity.
Okay.
So, yes.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Before we move on, I'd like to have a better understanding of slide 4. Just because, so 63,330 units of service, the street outreach, and then so the 15,110 shelter and housing, and then it says 1,541 clients housed or diverted. So I'm just trying to understand how those numbers relate to the number of people, the 15,000 to the 1,500. Could you just give me a brief description of what this all means?
Yes, Mayor, Councilmember Tomachov. Each of these numbers is a specific data point, and so the clients can receive them in any kind of combination. So you may have folks who receive a multiple street outreach contacts, so they may be engaged with 2, 3, 4, however many times. They also can receive services really in any combination that you see here. So these are not necessarily mutually exclusive. They are essentially specific individual services that any particular client may get.
Okay, so I didn't want to interrupt you, so I was waiting to make sure you were finished. So the 9,331, that's cases managed in the past year, individual cases that have been managed for under the Homeless Master Services Agreement, but concluding all the partners that are working in that continuum of care.
Mayor, Councilmember Tomashov, those are instances of being case managed. So that's not individual clients. So you may have one client who has had multiple instances or meetings of case management throughout,
Okay.
to your point, throughout, through all of the various partners that do provide those services.
All right, so, okay, so then, all those numbers are, they're not necessarily like employment services, doesn't necessarily mean that many people they received some sort of employment service and maybe not necessarily a job placement. Okay.
Mayor, Councilmember Tolman, that's correct.
All right, one more question if I could, Mayor. So I guess what I'm interested in understanding is, and then that number of clients housed or diverted is impressive. So I was wanting to relate it, and maybe I'll get to it later, is to how many interactions to how many people were actually housed or diverted from homelessness by rental assistance or other programs, because that's a very, very impressive number. So thank you.
In addition to the previous programs, Glendale Works has also recently celebrated its 5-year anniversary, beginning at the end of 2018. In total, just over 4,300 individuals unduplicated have participated in the program, earning about $763,000. 223 of them have been placed into permanent housing, and they have accomplished, or I should say they have completed over 700 individual cleanup projects from the landfill, public housing sites, and rights of way throughout the city. We've also recently completed the phase 2 of the cafe lighting project. I had the opportunity to be on that section of Glendale Avenue on Thursday night and saw that the lights were operating, that were on. We are currently in the process of wrapping up that contract and getting the final contracts taken care of. Current council consensus related to physical improvement is to take our CDBG program income, including our CARES Act money, and putting that towards physical improvement. We'll get to a little bit later in the presentation. We'll be asking for new policy direction to take that remnant CDBG, including program income, and putting it towards that TBR program for the case management services. And then finally, if you recall from last year's conversation, the council provided us direction to include, to create a new rental rehabilitation program. We have, staff have put together policies and procedures to be able to get that program up and running by the beginning of the new fiscal year. If you recall, there were several purposes for that program, one of which was to provide clean up neighborhoods, removing blight. It was also to create additional affordable housing units. And so some of the variables that you'll see here that the staff have coordinated with is looking at the unit size, the overall cost per unit, making sure that our housing choice client vouchers will have the opportunity to be able to rent these units, because there still is a deficit in terms of the difficulty in which difficulty that they have in finding units. Also some of the financing structure, and then marketing and project selection criteria are also in the works. And so based on our experiences over the last year, staff feel that activities and funding should be concentrated in the top 3 consolidated plan goals, which are, as you see here, advancing affordable housing, providing new services or expanded services to the homeless, and continued support for public services. We do see a continued need in the rental community. Rents are still quite high, and so we believe that we should continue to support programs and projects that do increase available affordable rental units. Our homelessness response has been effective. The underlying affordability issues persist, and so we believe that we should be continuing to fund those projects and programs, and therefore we recommend sustainability for these existing programs. And I will turn it over to Ms. DeLeo to speak to the specific activity recommendations.
Good afternoon, Mayor and council members. I am going to be going over our investment recommendations for today. We currently have our 24-25 CPD funding investment anticipated to be about $3.38 million. HUD has not currently sent out the final allocation at this moment, but we are proposing once the final allocation is out, we will go ahead and prorate each approved activity on a prorated basis. In addition to the new allocation of funding, we do have some remnant funding from prior years. You will see on this slide that there is $1.487 million of prior funding available to reallocate to new programs. On this slide, you'll see the year of funding in which it was received, the source of funding, and the current allocation and amount. On future slides, I will talk about where we propose to reallocate these funding to. So the consolidated action plans, goal number 1 is affordable housing, and staff is recommending to advance the affordable housing goal to allocate and invest $3.46 million into our residential rehab and home ownership program, the TBRA tenant-based rental assistance program, and our new rental construction program. Goal number 2 is the homeless services and housing support programs. Currently, there's $371,000 that staff would like to allocate and reinvest into our Homeless Solutions Alliance, Heat Relief Network, and our Glendale Works program. Goal number 3 is our public services for vulnerable populations. In order to advance this, we would like to recommend $360,000 be awarded to the following 14 applications and nonprofits. CDAC did review a total of about 18 applications earlier in the year and went through a series of a review process and made the following recommendations.
Mayor?
Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. Before we move on, a couple things. And I had asked Ms. Moreno because this was a presentation that was held over until today. But generally, we get the spreadsheet of the requests and then the awards, and that's not in anywhere today. So we don't know who requested and wasn't, or whether they requested more and they weren't given that amount. That's one question. And then I wanted to know how many residents are housed in the treasure house. I think it's like 24 or something like that.
Mayor and Councilmember Tolmachov, with regard to the first question, you would have received a big binder that had all of the grant applications probably 2 months ago that included all applications and the ranking. It was a spreadsheet that looked like this. In addition, there was a memo from me that kind of talked about, here's the original framework that we used, but here were some additional things that we asked CDAC to consider as they were evaluating these recommendations. Some of those things had to do with monitoring, findings, and different things like that. And so CDAC analyzed all of the applications according to the matrix that we used to allocate points towards those applications, and then made these final recommendations.
Okay, I did receive the binder and I did review the binder, but in years past, that spreadsheet has been part of your presentation, and it wasn't part of the presentation this year. So I didn't bring the binder with me, so I don't have it with me today. But I guess that's neither here nor there. I did want to know about the treasure house.
We're reviewing their application right now to see if they're actually identifying how many.
And then while you're doing that, can I ask another question? Oh, Vice Mayor, I guess. Can I ask another? Okay, thank you. What kind of, on the duet, vital services for homebound seniors, what what do those services consist of?
Mayor, Councilwoman, or Councilmember Tomachoff, there was 29 individuals residing at the Treasure House.
That's $1,034 per resident, unless that money's being used for some other outside program.
Mayor and Councilmember Cholmachoff, the program for Treasure House is associated with their workforce development, I believe, their employment activities. And so those employment activities could serve other than Glendale residents, obviously, at that facility. We can certainly follow up and give you some additional information on their details on their grant application after the workshop. And then,
Yes, Mayor, Councilmember Tomachoff, Duet's application says that their services will include providing assistance with food insecurity, safety, and well-being. They also provide transportation and transportation to medical appointments, the pharmacy, post office, and other places that they need to, including grocery shopping to obtain food. They also work to help them get their vision taken care of by appointment, so that it helps with their reading and understanding, as well as other legal assistance services as well.
Okay, thank you for that. Can I continue? Thank you. I think first of all, for Treasure House, I mean, and, you know, nothing to disparage Treasure House, but I mean, it's a small community. So are they doing outreach? Like, I know that One Step Beyond, I've been to multiple events that they've catered. They've got a pretty robust, I've been to plays there. They've got a lot of programs that help a pretty large number of people within the disabled community. And that's my only concern, is that, you know, there's never enough money to go around. And if this money, $30,000, is only assisting 29 people, I think we could have greater reach with that $30,000. At least that's my thought. And then with the, I would at least like to consider every year, I believe, there's been a council wanting to fund Meals on Wheels, and I think it was through the YWCA. And I don't remember not having that if they applied for a grant and did not receive it, but $30,000 with all those services for seniors, with getting them to appointments, to the post office, to other places. And I didn't hear, you said grocery shopping, but I didn't hear having ready-to-eat meals delivered to homebound seniors that are not able to really cook for themselves, but that's takes care of a need, and it also provides a visit and the other things that go with the Meals on Wheels service. So I know we've had this discussion, I think, just about every year, that we would like to see that program continues to get funding. So,
Mayor and Councilmember Cholmachoff, it's certainly within the purview of this council to make changes to the recommendations of the Community Development Advisory Committee, the council-appointed committee, and staff's recommendation. What you've been presented here today have been applications that have been fully vetted by our staff and presented to the CDAC, along with additional information that we think is important for not only CDAC to consider, but also council to consider as it relates to the performance of individual subrecipients. As you know, these are federal funds. They are not easy funds to spend. They are not easy funds to administer. And so we have gone through the process over the last 12 to 18 months to really put into place some very comprehensive contract monitoring practices to ensure that our subrecipients are successful in delivering services associated with these programs. So what is presented here today is staff's recommendation that was supported unanimously by CDAC as to these allocations and the investments into programs and services that we believe will be high performing for our residents for the next year. So with that, we would certainly welcome any recommendations. I can speak to you privately or offline about any specific allocation. The part of the reason why the YWCA's program was not being supported or recommended is because they had 3 items that were outside of normal range as it relates to the holistic view of their ability to manage the contract. We're continuing to work with them, obviously, and they may be eligible for funding in a future year. But because there were more requests than what we have funding for, we had to make some recommendations as to how to objectively view these applications and make a recommendation for the ones that we felt would be highest performing.
Mayor, if I could, does Duet offer a Meals on Wheels program? Do they deliver cooked meals to homebound seniors.
Just one moment, and we'll give you the
Okay.
details.
And
from
then,
your
I mean,
application.
just back to the Treasure House. I mean, I don't want to disparage Treasure House. What they're doing is great. It's a great community, but for 29 residents, that, I mean, there's some, as you said, you just said, there's not enough money to go around. It just seems like that's a lot of money. It's over $1,000 per resident. And I mean, like I said, I understand that the employment and life skills, but you know, they're pretty successful in fundraising, and it's a small number of people for that amount of money that it's going to actually serve. So that's what my concern was. I was fairly certain that there were not that many people living there that were going to benefit from this money.
Mayor and Councilmember Cholmachoff, the only other thing that I would just remind you is that delivering services for a disabled population tends to be more expensive. So that's just one thing to consider. So when we do the analysis, we also look at populations served, and again, serving disabled populations is something that is important. It is a vulnerable population in our community. Again, we're here to take direction from the City Council. Do you have the answer to that other question?
Mayor, Councilmember Tolmatroff, Duet's application does not specifically state anything about prepared meals or warm meals. I would also like to offer the information that YWCA is funded in the current GHSA, the Glendale Homeless Service Alliance, and will be providing these services within that scope.
Okay, thank you. I'll let somebody else speak.
Thank you. To follow up on the Treasure House, so it's a residential living environment for the young adults with disabilities, but you listed other services that are provided, the job training, the transportation to doctors. Are those services strictly for the residents there, or do they have any outreach into the community where non-residents are benefiting from what they do?
Mayor, council member, I believe it is for the residents of their home or of their organization, but I will need to double check, and I can get back to you with that clarifying information.
Okay. And again, not disparaging Treasure House, I have respect for what they do, but having looked at their website and gone through their board and all of that, it does seem like they're pretty well connected, and which is great, but we have a lot of need in our community that doesn't have those kind of connections, and or more pointedly, we're that connection. And want to make sure that if we're spending this money, we do it for the greatest need. And so that's what I would say.
Mayor. Thank you, Mayor. I do remember my binder. I did go through my binder. But refresh my memory, did we at a workshop discuss the individual grants that were going to be made this year? I don't remember such a workshop, but did we have one?
Mayor and Councilmember Clark, we have not done a workshop with the council where we review every single application for several years. We take that to CDAC and then bring CDAC's recommendations to the council, and that's what we're presenting today.
Okay. I would like to see us reinstitute council discussion of the recommendations for the allocation of this money. It's basically too late to do it now because they've probably been told they've been awarded a certain amount of money, and without an opportunity to discuss it at workshop, it puts us at a disadvantage. I understand that Meals on Wheels is going to be funded by another agency. That's great. But I don't think council knew that there was difficulty in administering the contract. And that would have been helpful information to know. So again, I would like to go back to reviewing the recommendations of CDAC and staff so that council has an opportunity to weigh in as well. Thank you.
Mayor.
The question?
Yes, please. And along kind of that same line, it seems to me that in the past we've had the CDAC chairperson as part of the presentation are able to fill in some of the gaps or anything? I'm thinking not like in the last 3 or 4 years, but in previous years, or that maybe CDAC members would be in the audience or whatever. But I mean, I definitely want to respect their recommendations, but they might be able to provide some insight, and I certainly would want to express my appreciation for the work they've done. They're one of the hardest working and most often meeting, and have to study, a lot of material in order to do their jobs correctly. So I want to make sure we're fully respecting them. Thank you.
You got another page?
I have, Mayor, I have one more question. Are any of these other programs funded at that level where it basically comes out to over $1,000 per person?
Mayor and Councilmember Tolmachoff, Treasure House is at $1,034 cost per beneficiary. Valley Life is at $2,250. Those are the two highest that are being recommended, and then it drops down to about $830 for Southwest Fair Housing Council. This is all on that information that was previously shared with you. So one of the things that is one of the areas that we look at. But to be clear, we don't look at an applicant's fundraising capabilities outside of this grant process as a factor. When we evaluate these grants, they are evaluated based on the service that they're going to provide, based on their alignment to the consolidated plan goals, and also based on history of performance and service here in the city of Glendale. And so I would be happy to workshop an item in the future to get some clear direction from the city council as to your expectations moving forward on how we handle and manage the public services grants. I would like to just remind the council that over the last several years, we have tried to implement efficiencies within this process, and one of those was related to how we handled the public service grants and the whole grant application process in general, which is the process that has been in place for the last several years. Obviously, we would be happy to reevaluate that process to ensure that council feels comfortable and confident about the information that's being presented to you by staff and by the Community Development Advisory Committee.
Mayor, one more question. So is reach of the amount of people that are going to be, is that one of the considerations in evaluating and awarding the grants? Like, how many people is this money gonna help?
Mayor and Councilmember Tolmachoff, yes, that's correct. So we look at total beneficiaries proposed, and then specifically the number of Glendale beneficiaries, and then we look at the percentage of Glendale beneficiaries as compared to the total. So all of that is information that is provided to the CDAC. It's analyzed by staff and presented in combination with lots of other data points to arrive at a very difficult decision, which is there's going to be some organizations that are recommended for funding and some that are not, because there's just more need in the community than there is funding for such a small amount of federal dollars.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm kind of in agreement with the idea of having council review this before we bring it to final discussion. I know it's a difficult decision that we're asking our commission members to make. They're going through it the best of their ability, and I think handling that well. But occasionally there are times where council may have had some input directly from their constituents on some projects, and I think it'd be an opportunity for us to kind of have that presentation after the CDAC has done its job of going through and making their recommendations, but then having an opportunity to review all of the applications, more of an informal workshop, just to be able to do that, I think is important. But I also want to reemphasize what Councilmember Turner just mentioned. It's a lot of work going through these applications. I know your staff spends a lot of time gathering and going through them, so I appreciate all the efforts that your staff puts in, as well as the commissioners who spend the time to really evaluate these and make decisions based on the very little resources that we have for a very great need. And so I appreciate all you do, and I hope that we can just make it a little bit more easy by having council input a little earlier on some of these projects. I think it'll make everything flow much better. Thank you, Mayor.
Mr. Phelps?
Mayor, members of council, again, we're following the process the council had kind of directed. So to be clear again, these are recommendations. So even today, there's nothing here that would preclude, the council from saying we'd like to see this allocation done differently. It's why the notebooks were provided 2 months ago, along with some follow-up memo. So the process is you ask your citizen advisory committee to go through in detail, use the matrix, score the projects, make their recommendations. We then schedule a workshop and we bring those recommendations forward. And so that's kind of what, to a degree, what we're doing here today. And if there's heartburn over funding Treasure House, for example, we can either discuss offline, you can give consensus today, or what you could say is we have concerns about these projects and we pick up another, we can come back at our next workshop and follow up this. But this is kind of the process we've done, is where we give you all the applications a couple months in advance, because it's a lot to go through, as you can imagine. But I want to be clear, this is only recommendations, and nothing has been finalized, nothing has been promised to any of the recipients. So there's no level of expectation that the council is going to just take the recommendations of staff and the committee, carte blanche. And I think in past years, we've made some tweaks and changes to the recommendations, and so that's certainly been the process we've done in the past. So again, I don't know how you want to handle that today. We could come back if you want some time to reflect on it. Jane, do we have time to still bring this back for a workshop?
Mr. Phelps, we would have to bring this forward to City Council voting for May 14th, so I believe that we might have time for a workshop that day.
Right.
So let me ask the council a quick question. Is Treasure House the only heartburn people seem to have with everything proposed? Can we get a consensus on everything but Treasure House and then talk about what the options would be at the next meeting?
I'm fine with that.
Mayor, thank you. When I look at the list, I see it heavily weighted. There are 4 programs devoted to youth and only 1 program devoted to seniors. With the economy the way that it is, and people are having difficulty making rent, food, gas, I would think that there might be an enhanced need by seniors, especially in terms of food. Now, you said that because of issues with the contract with Meals on Wheels that you have to work through, you couldn't grant them, but another agency is granting them. So my question is it possible to funnel some of this money to this other agency that is supporting Meals on Wheels if we cannot do it ourselves with a contract? Is that at all feasible?
Mayor and Councilmember Clark, to answer your first question with regard to the number of organizations that serve seniors, there were 2 that were not recommended for funding, Benevia and the YWCA. One of which, both of them each had 3 items that were outside of normal range when looking at risk, essentially, is how this was put together. Benevia, unfortunately, let's see. So Benevia had 2 high-risk findings during their last review and 1 moderate-risk finding during their last review. Arizona YWCA had 3 high-risk findings during their last review, 5 moderate-risk findings during their last review, and 1 area of concern. So those are the reasons why those organizations are not currently being recommended during this funding cycle, is because we took a very risk-based and data-based approach to evaluating applications. It's not to say that they can't work through those issues and be eligible for the next cycle. With regard to your second question about support for these organizations, obviously they are the fabric of our community, and we work very closely with them outside of actual funding relationships. They do have a services that they're providing under the Glendale Homeless Solutions Alliance, where when they're doing their home visits and things like that, they're making additional referrals for other services. So that communication is there, that partnership is still there. It's just that they're not being recommended for funding based on the risk assessment.
Mayor, if I could, I did read through the binder, and the matrix was very good. It was very logical. You made a good case for those institutions that you did recommend. I'm not faulting you for the work you did. You did an incredible amount of background work on reviewing all of these different agencies. And therefore, I expect the Citizens Commission also did a great deal of work in reviewing all of these applications as well. I just think that there are some things that council may know about that the Citizens Commission or staff doesn't know about. And so my heartburn is not giving us an opportunity to weigh in. Now, it's my understanding these are all recommendations, right? So they're not finalized yet. I think in view of the fact that there is some concern about one or more of these grants, that even if it is a workshop the night of the voting meeting, that there ought to be a workshop to allow council to further discuss any issues that they feel about any of the staff and Citizen Commission recommendations.
Mayor and council members, one of the things that I would recommend is if you want to have additional discussion about the $30,000 that's recommended for Treasure House, that can be set aside. What we'd recommend is that council move forward with the balance of the recommendations, and we can always reallocate that $30,000 that was recommended for Treasure House to another public service later on. It won't hold up our process for getting our annual action plan adopted, and it would give you time to discuss that allocation. One of the things that I would point out is that the Boys and Girls Club of the Valley had requested $15,000. The CDAC was recommending only funding $5,000, so that may be an opportunity to allocate a portion of that $30,000 if the council chose not to fund Treasure House. And then the other thing that will happen in the meantime is we'll get our final actual allocations from HUD, which may be a little bit less than what we had projected, and then perhaps the balance of that $30,000 is absorbed if it is less, and then we don't have to go back and adjust these numbers on a prorated basis. So that would be my recommendation based on the junction of where we're at today.
I think that's a good solution, Mayor.
So I'll ask the same question again. Do we have a consensus on everything but Treasure House to accept?
Yes.
Okay, so we're good there. And then on the Treasure House, would that be the next workshop that we have? As
Mayor
far
and-
as options?
Mayor and council members, it wouldn't necessarily have to take place at the next workshop. I think my recommendation would be let's wait until we get the final allocations from HUD, and then we'll come back, as we periodically do with the council, to look at reallocations of funding.
Okay, with that, I've got another question for you.
I'm good.
Oh, you're good, okay. All right. You have anything else?
Mayor, may I want to thank you guys for the work you do, and I hope you're not, misunderstanding the concern is, and you said multiple times, I think all three of you did, is that there's just not enough money to go around in the community, and I think the council's view is that we want to have as much reach as we can, and I want to thank CDAC for the work they do. It's not that we don't appreciate, it's just, and I'm not exactly sure, I think a workshop would be good, because once we get the binder and review it, but then we wait for this workshop to actually have the discussion. So there's no discussion in between, and we can't obviously discuss among each others because we're going to end up voting on this. So it does kind of put us in a, where we don't really have an opportunity for us to have a robust discussion amongst each other in any other setting except for today. So there's no other opportunity to bring up a concern because of the open meeting laws and other things that we have to follow. That's the way we're doing it right now, creates this situation. So I just wanted to point that out. Thank you.
So Mayor, just to be clear on the consensus is to move forward with the recommendations as presented with the exception of Treasure House, which will be discussed by the council at a later date.
Correct.
Okay. And there's a typo on this slide here. We will be bringing the annual action plan forward for council adoption on the May 12th, 14th meeting. And then we'll have a discussion about the final HUD allocations and then the $30,000 of remnant funding that'll need to be allocated. So thank you.
Thank you.
AN 259 Myrtle Avenue and 81st Avenue annexation located at the southeast corner of 81st Avenue and Myrtle Avenue.
Mayor, members of the council, here to provide staff report is Assistant Director of Development Services, Tabitha Perry.
Thank you, Mr. Phelps. Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. This annexation presentation follows the city's annexation policy, which requests the council to provide consensus to proceed with the annexation application. Council, for the last several years, you've been seeing annexation proposals along the 303 area, larger sites in size, and typically non-residential developments being proposed. So this is somewhat of a different type of annexation proposal before you this afternoon. One second, please. Okay. The subject property is approximately 5 acres in size and is located at the southeast corner of Myrtle Avenue and 81st Avenue. As you know, the property is currently in the county jurisdiction with the classification for residential land uses. And then upon annexation, the city would apply the most compatible like zoning classification, which in this case will also be for residential land uses. The proposal is for a townhouse development consisting of 75 units. And because of the proposal, there will be no need for a rezoning application request. This slide depicts the location, which is approximately 3.2 miles from City Hall. Here's the current annexations map, just to kind of give you an idea of how many annexation applications that we have in the queue. Here is the annexation map. As you can see, the subject property is a county island within the city's boundaries. This application would reduce the county island of an infill area for future development. Water and sewer will be provided by the city. There's also a regional automatic aid agreement with the city of Glendale being the primary provider for public safety services. Here is an aerial map for context. The subject site is surrounded by residential land uses to the north, west, and south, and a mobile home park located to the east. Staff received a fiscal impact analysis through Applied Economics that projected a positive net gain to the city based on the projected 75 townhomes and an additional 260 feet of street lane from the extension of 81st Avenue along the western boundary of the subject site. The fiscal impact analysis estimated one-time fees of $820,000. And then once again, the positive net impact to the city of being $4,000 per year, excluding the one-time revenues. Here is a bar chart, just showing it from a different perspective. Provided council provides a consensus to move forward, the next time the item will be presented before you would be for the public hearing on the blank petition to receive feedback from citizens, followed by the adoption of the annexation. And with that, Mayor and Council, I'm seeking consensus to proceed forward with the annexation application request.
Question? Your consensus?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Ms. Bauer?
A request to rename El Barrio Park.
Mayor, members of the council, here to provide staff report this afternoon, is John Kennedy, Director of Parks and Recreation.
Thank you, Mr. Phelps. Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. This is an update to on the park naming policy process for the request received to rename El Barrio Park to Veteranos Park. El Barrio Park is located at 54th Avenue and Ocotillo Road. It's just across the street from the Glendale Community Center. The leaders of the El Barrio Corazon y Alma organization submitted a request to rename El Barrio Park to Veteranos Park, to dedicate the park to the men and women who have served in the past, present, and future. This was an extension of the Heart of Glendale Recognition Plaques project that was heard before this council earlier this year. In February 13th, council gave direction to staff to proceed with the park naming process. So with that, there were postcards mailed to a little over 1,700 homes adjacent to El Barrio Park, both in English and Spanish. Those postcards included a QR code to take folks to an online survey. They had the option to mail in the ballot with their vote, or drop off their ballot at the nearby community center. We received 19 online survey submittals, and we did not receive any mail-in or drop-in ballots. The result of the survey is on the slide in front of you. There were 13 votes to keep the name El Barrio Park. There were 2 votes to change the name to Veteranos Park. And then there were 4 votes spread across 4 different recommended names. In addition, the requester group submitted a petition with 123 signatures supporting their request to rename the park to Veteranos Park. So we took all of this information to the April 8th Parks and Recreation Advisory Commission meeting, where after review and discussion, they voted unanimously to recommend renaming El Barrio Park as Veteranos Park. So with that concludes my presentation. Happy to answer any questions and just seeking council direction.
Anybody?
I do.
Good.
Just, if I may, just for confirmation, what was it, 1,700 homes that were notified were all from that neighborhood, a certain radius or something like that?
Mayor, Councilmember Turner, that's correct. 3/4 mile radius was used to reach that number.
Thank you.
Mayor,
Go ahead.
I do have a question. Thank you, Mayor. The petition, were they also residents that are in the vicinity of that park, or are they from all over Glendale? Were they all Glendale residents? But who signed these 123 people that signed the petition?
Mayor, council members, Councilmember Tomachoff, all we received was a petition with listed signatures. It did not include addresses or any other supporting materials. We verbally have been told that it was included the area around that park.
So, Mayor, if I could, that's interesting, that we don't know whether even those people are Glendale residents that signed that petition. We don't have any way of knowing that.
Mayor, members of the council, I
figure.
do not have any additional supporting information.
That gives me a little pause, especially because the survey that we did clearly, and I know it wasn't a lot of responses, but clearly the highest response was to keep the name El Barrio Park. So I don't know if anybody else would like to speak, but the fact 123 signatures is great, but who are those people that signed that petition? Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Do you still have the petitions?
Mayor, Councilmember Clark, yes, we do.
Can you review them and let us know where these people who signed the petition came from? Because I also paused. This survey, how many people were in this survey? What survey was this? Where the slide that says renaming of El Barrio Park, and then it shows Ocotillo, Manny Martinez, keep the name Glendale Park, change the name America Park. That slide, how many people participated in that?
Mayor and Councilmember Clark, there were 19 online responses that we received.
So 19 online responses versus 100 and some petition signatures, but we don't know where they came from.
Mayor and Councilmember Clark, that's correct.
Until I see the petition signatures, I'm not prepared to move forward on this yet. Thank you.
Mayor, I would suggest that we go back to those who gathered the petition and ask them to provide some citizen addresses on those. I mean, they're not going to be necessarily have to be public, but I think that would kind of answer that question for the council. I mean, I don't have a problem if the neighborhood wishes to follow this process. And my understanding that you have followed the City of Glendale renaming process, is that correct?
Mayor, Councilmember Malinar, yes, that is correct.
Okay, and our Parks Commission has come back and said this is what based on everything that we've done, this is the name we've selected.
That is correct.
Okay, and I barring the concerns, I would at this point in time go ahead and follow the recommendation of our Parks Commission, but I would agree that we could somehow just verify the signatures or the people that did sign it, that they are residents of the area, and then move forward from there.
Yeah, my question is, you were given a list of names. Were there addresses with those names or just names?
Mayor and council members, they were just signatures, so they were not printed names. They were just a list, 3 pages long of signatures.
I personally think that we should hold this item and make sure that the people that want to change it live in that district, live in that immediate area.
I agree, Mayor. That was my question, but I did want to ask because, I want to be respectful of the recommendation of the Parks and Recreation Commission, but was there any discussion among them? And I mean, the petitions, maybe they don't know. I mean, obviously we've seen lots of stuff happen with petitions over the last few weeks, so maybe it didn't occur to them to review the petitions, but was there any discussion at that meeting where they made the recommendation about whether or not the people who signed that petition were even Glendale residents?
Mayor, council members, Councilmember Tomachoff, yes, that was a point of discussion during the meeting. They did discuss through that. They discussed what other options they had, and they decided to move forward with the recommendation and the vote.
Yeah, I'm not willing to move forward either until we actually know where those people that signed the petition, whether or not they're residents.
Yeah, I do believe that we have. But
Mr. Mayor, I need to jump in and kind of defend staff. I don't know how we would ever take the 133 names with no phone numbers and no addresses. What I would say, maybe the next step would be, if you want to put a pause, is we know who the people who gathered the signatures. We can ask them to go back and see if they could create a similar petition with verifiable addresses and stuff. But I don't know internally how we would ever be able to do that. It's not uncommon to sign a petition saying we want to bring this attention forward, to a body. If you want to really do that, I think we should do is go back and say that, and then we would really need to restart the process and bring that information back to the Parks Commission and let them take a look at it as well.
yeah, what I was going to say is I believe that we have a consensus to hold this right now, but here in about 4.5 hours, we're gonna have a new council member in that district. One of the things that he's gonna be doing very quickly is more than likely having a district meeting. That'd be a great opportunity to bring that to your people in that district and find out exactly where they're at, get names and addresses. You know, I don't have a problem with changing it, we just want to do it right. And I think all of us feel the same way.
Yeah, Mayor, and I wasn't suggesting that staff do this. I agree that the person who's bringing this forward, I think that's what some of us even said, is that they should know who these people are, that they had signed this petition, be able to shouldn't be too difficult. It's only 125, and some of them are probably husband and wife, same household, that sort of thing. It shouldn't be that difficult to get that information for us. And I agree that soon-to-be Councilmember Baldenegro, I think, should be involved in the decision as well. Thank you.
Okay, so we have a consensus on tabling this right now. Okay.
Thank you.
Next item.
Council item of special interest regarding repeat offenders policy ordinance.
Mayor, members of the council, here to provide staff report on this item is Rick St. John, Deputy City Manager.
Good afternoon, Mayor, members of the council. We talked about the repeat offender ordinance, or the possibility of adopting a repeat offender ordinance a couple of weeks ago, and we're bringing information back to council today to get direction from council on adopting an ordinance that does define repeat offender, who a repeat offender is, and sets forth a penalty for that repeat offender. So if you give me just a second, I'm going to flip forward on a couple of slides and then turn the conversation over to Mr. Tim Bowling, your code official, for the presentation.
Thank you, Rick. Mayor, members of the council. We're just seeking direction on adopting an ordinance that would address repeat offenders. A reminder, the repeat offender policy is designed to provide relief for neighborhoods that have to deal with people that continuously violate city codes and deteriorate the neighborhood. Again, this is a definition of a repeat offender. It's a responsible person who's been issued 2 compliance orders or citations at the same property within a 12-month period. And again, I want to point out, they don't necessarily have to receive a citation, just a notice of violation or a final notice from an inspector that witnesses a violation at the property twice within a 12-month time frame. In addition, a responsible person may also be a repeat offender if it's a property that we have several violations throughout the year. They may be different violations, and they receive notices and compliance orders, parking violations, those types of things. Again, our process on a normal case is that we go to a property. If inspector witnesses a violation, they serve a notice, usually 7 to 10 days. If they come back after those 7 to 10 days, they'll issue a final notice, giving them usually another 7 to 10 days. And on the 3rd inspection, if the violations still remain, we issue most likely, usually a civil citation. We go through the civil citation process. If they're still in violation, then we file criminal charges. Okay, so once they have been determined to be a repeat offender, our office sends a letter to the responsible party that informs them they're a repeat offender. And upon another violation within that 12-month period, we could go straight to a civil citation. And that's usually what we do. If it's the same violation and we come back, we'll go straight to a civil citation. If we've already issued a civil citation, then we'll go straight to criminal charges. If it's a different violation, again, our goal is to obtain compliance and educate the residents on what the codes are. So if it's a different violation, we'll typically give them a new notice of violation. Again, last year in a calendar year, we had about 40 repeat offenders out of our 11,000 cases. We currently, our computer system doesn't have a system that will run a report or a query to tell us the repeat offender properties. But in Glendale 1, which is the system that we use, we do have a checkbox. So when the inspector gets there, they can see the checkbox that notifies them that it's a repeat offender property. Just for your information, our civil code infraction goes through city court, and Chapter 13 gives that anywhere a range from $20 to $300 fine fixed by the court unless the sanctions are otherwise set by ordinance. Criminal charges is Arizona Revised Statute. It's a Class 1 misdemeanor, up to a $2,500 fine, up to 6 months imprisonment as fixed by the court. So this is the proposed ordinance. We looked throughout the country to see if there was any type of ordinance that addressed property maintenance for repeat offenders. Most cities have a policy to address repeat offenders, but there's no existing ordinance in city codes that address repeat offenders. So we took a shot at repeat offender ordinance, and this is the first to define what a repeat offender would be. And then the ordinance portion of that would be if a person is a repeat offender of this chapter, they're subject to civil sanction, and the court would be required to fine them a minimum of $400, but not more than $1,000. And I'll leave that up. That concludes our presentation, but we'd be happy to answer any questions. Oh, I'm sorry. The next slide. We would also need to add the definition of a responsible person, which a responsible person is a property owner, occupant, lessee, anybody that is responsible for the condition of a property. They have control over the property, renter or owner.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to be clear. So we would be changing the civil code infraction that currently exists in city code from a $20 to $300 fine fixed by the court to item C, a person that is a repeat offender of any violation is subject to a civil sanction of not less than $400 nor more than $1,000. So that's a change, correct?
Mayor, Councilmember Clark, that would change. What that does is define the sanction for a repeat offender. It doesn't change the civil code in Chapter 13. It just defines it for what a repeat offender. It's similar to like a DUI first offense, DUI second offense. There are designated penalties for each time you hit that.
Okay.
This would be a designated penalty for a repeat offender.
In essence, you're enhancing the code by
Correct.
including another subheading, and that would be the repeat offender, and it would have a separate fine scale. Okay. Now, that my second question is, again with C, a person that is a repeat offender of any violation is subject to a civil sanction. Are we removing the possibility of a criminal citation for a repeat offender?
No, Mayor, Councilmember Clark, we would still pursue criminal if it was necessary. For example, we may have a repeat offender that we've just served a notice to twice throughout the year. On the third time it happens within that 12-month period, we go out and issue a civil citation. That civil citation would be subject to the minimum of $400 up to $1,000. If the violation was not corrected after that process, we would still go with a criminal citation.
So shouldn't C say something along the lines of is subject to a civil citation, yada yada, or a criminal citation, yada yada? Shouldn't C say both and recognize the fact that there's a possibility that it could be civil or criminal?
Mayor, Councilmember Clark, that provision is already in Chapter 25, that we have the authority to go civil or criminal. I don't know that it helps or hurts or makes it any more clear to have criminal in C.
I would think it would be important to recognize that there's a possibility that it could be one or the other. And so I think it would be important to recognize that it's not just civil, but it could be criminal as well in item C. Thank you, Mayor.
Question for you. Currently, if we weren't talking about this, currently somebody has a third violation in 12 months, what is the penalty?
Mayor, it would depend on where we're at in the process. So if it was a repeat offender, we would issue a civil citation. The penalty, okay, if it's not a repeat offender, or if it is a repeat offender, we wrote a civil citation, this would be what it is. Currently, right now, it's a civil citation anywhere from $20 to $300.
Okay, that's kind of where I was going. So I've had numerous times where I've gotten calls to my office where somebody been ill, been sick, lost a family member, handicap, you name it, lots and lots of different issues, where I've been able to get churches and different groups to go out and literally bring their place back up to meet code. You're not giving the judge any opportunity here to say, I understand your situation and I'm not going to charge or make you pay $400, or you're saying not less than 400, so that's flat out, it's $400 on a third penalty. I don't agree with that personally. I think the judges should have that opportunity to be able to work with the people. If it's a real issue and the people are trying and they just can't, finding them something they can't pay doesn't do anybody any good. So that's my personal feeling on this. I don't like the criminal part of it at all. I think what Councilmember Clark was talking about is, I think that, again, should be left up to where you guys have the opportunity. If it's somebody that's blatantly don't care, they have the ability to fix it, but they won't. Yeah, criminal, I have no problem with that. But again, to somebody that's struggling, I don't know making them a criminal is going to do anybody any good.
Turn that on. Thank you, Mayor. But we do have, I mean, I've seen cases, I mean, you do have the ability to pause the case and put it on hold, right? If somebody says, you know, my husband passed away, I had surgery, I'm unable to, can you connect me? And I know that we've talked about this, that you do connect people. We've got volunteer coordinators here in the city. They'll call the mayor's office, they'll call other people and say, I need help. I know with Councilmember Hugh, we've even gone out and shoveled rock for somebody to help them become compliant. So, I mean, there's ways to assist these people without, those aren't the people that we're trying to get to move. So is there a way to pause that if somebody's saying, I'm trying to get help to get this done and we don't want to proceed to the next level? It's pretty easy to determine the difference, I think.
So, Mayor, Councilmember Tommelchoff, this ordinance, if adopted by council, would not change how we're currently enforcing the code. We always work with your constituents on bringing their properties into compliance as best we can. The last resort is always to issue the citation, unless it's a repeat offender that has the same repeated issue over and over and over. Then we might go straight to citation after 2 cases in the 12-month period, as defined within our administrative policy currently. What this ordinance would do is set a minimum maximum fine standard for being a repeat offender. They would still be accountable to the actions within, or to the violations within the code, which may be criminal at times, if that makes sense. So they could be held criminally responsible for a violation of the code and civilly responsible as a repeat offender on the same case.
So, Mayor, if I could, so, I mean, the idea is, the idea is to be able to address the people who are trying to outgame the system, essentially. Is that a good way to describe it? Is because as it stands right now, there's no, there's the worst, literally the worst that could happen is they get fined somewhere between $20 and $300. But there are people who are trying to outgame the system and outmaneuver the system, and those are the people we want to try to do something, penalize them more, and there be more consequences to bring them into compliance.
Yeah, Mayor, Councilwoman Tommelchoff, as the cases that we go through, 98% of our cases come into compliance voluntarily. And we work with community revitalization, several churches, and some nonprofit organizations to provide assistance for those folks that like the mayor mentioned, that just had a problem, have some issues that they can't take care of the property themselves. So this is really a real small number of folks that we deal with. We issue about 25 criminal citations last year and about 160 civil citations. And again, that's out of 11,000, 12,000 cases. So it's a small percentage of cases that we deal with that get to this level.
So a couple things, Mayor, while I have the floor. So you guys are the boots on the ground. In your opinion, is this going to assist you in dealing with that 2% of the people who are not coming into compliance and that are essentially trying to outgame the system? Do you think this is going to assist in trying to close that loop and get them to comply?
Mayor, Councilman Tomachoff, this is trailblazing. Like I said, there's no other ordinance that we could find in the country that establishes minimum fines for property maintenance types of issues. It could help. It's hard to say.
Okay, and one more question, or I guess one more statement. I know we had a pretty robust discussion before about the definition of the responsible person. And so this would clarify that, and I guess it'd be some more part of the ordinance, but it would clarify that the person responsible, and I know a lot of these issues we've seen are cars parked in front yards and things like that. This would hold the person, the legal occupant or the property manager of the property responsible, and not the person who the car belongs to.
Mayor, Councilmember Tomachoff, that's correct.
Okay.
I know violations on city streets where the police cite them, they cite it for the vehicle itself and whoever owns the vehicle. But on private property, we always hold the responsible person responsible, and that's going to be whoever's in control of that property. If your adult child comes over and parks in the middle of the front yard, you would get the notice, not your child.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm going to make one statement, then we'll come over here. On that paragraph C of the previous slide, where it goes not less than $400 up to $1,000, if it stays that way, I won't be supporting this. If it was giving the judge the opportunity to make that call when it comes to court, so if it was $1 up to $500, I wouldn't have a problem with that. But having a minimum of $400, I just think that somebody's going to get bit one of these days that can't afford it, and that's only going to exacerbate the problem, make it worse.
Mayor, if I could, this amount was just arbitrary pulled out. It's really up to the city council at where you want to establish that, and we're open to any dollar amount that you see fit.
I personally feel if the judge had that opportunity to make that call dependent on the circumstances with that particular person, again, if it was $1 up to $500, I wouldn't have a problem with that. But starting off at $400, or $1 up to $1,000. Anyway, that's my concern on this issue. Okay, go ahead.
I respectfully disagree. I think that this whole repeat offender addition to the code is designed to get people who game the system. And there may be only, I think you said there were 40 last year. Those are the people for which this, and it's sad we have to do this, pass an ordinance to deal with people who are gaming the system. I think the people you refer to, Mayor, are hardship cases. And from what I've heard from staff today, we have mechanisms to help people who are hardship cases. And they are not typically, a person who's a hardship case, have you ever heard of them being fined $200 or $400? Or do we work with them? What's the typical disposition of someone who's a hardship case?
Mayor, Councilmember Clark, we try really hard to work with folks as much as we possibly can, but we also try to balance what the conditions are, how they are affecting the neighborhood, and if the complainant, and if you live next door to that situation, how tolerant, how patient would you be? We try to balance that. But I think we do a pretty good job of working with churches and nonprofits. And community revitalization, Michelle Yates is a great help for us, connecting volunteers to properties. We've worked with Councilman Malinar and Granada Estates and improved probably 40 or 50 properties out there that had code violations. So we work really hard to connect residents with resources to correct the violations. And we've even had some inspectors go out on their own time in the weekends and correct some violations for some senior citizen veterans. So we work really hard at that. That's all I can tell you. We try our best not to issue citations to folks that we are aware that they can't take care of the violations themselves.
If I could continue, Mayor. So what I'm hearing is hardship cases we do try to work with in one form or fashion, whether it's through a church, a neighbor, a service group, whatever. We identify those people, we try to get them the resources they need. This ordinance is for those people who continually commit the same violation and are quite frankly driving their neighbors nuts. Would that be a pretty fair assessment of what this proposed ordinance is designed to tackle?
Mayor, Councilmember Clark, I think you're right. Like we mentioned, we had about 40 repeat offenders last year, so this isn't a large percentage of folks, but it will be the folks that we have educated clearly. They know what the code is because we've talked to them at least twice before, and so they're choosing to ignore the education part that we're giving to them. And so at some point, you have to go to the next step, and that's what this would do.
Let me ask you another question.
Thank you, Mayor.
Repeat offenders on a particular item, but didn't I read before that it was more than two issues? If anything is repeated and they have to come back, talk to somebody or give them, so it doesn't have to be the same item 3 times in a row. It could be 3 different items. Is that wrong or right?
No, Mayor,
It's the same offense.
it's usually the same item. The definition, let me go back to definition, oops, one too far. It's going to be the same or similar violation within a 12-month period. So if it's something entirely different, we would go through our normal process as far as serving a notice. Now, if it's something similar, we gauge what the condition is on the property. And I'll give you an example. We have items in public view, boxes and trash and that kind of thing. If somebody puts that outside and we've served them a notice and we've done it twice within a 12-month period, and now we come back and they have an abandoned vehicle parked on their driveway, that's similar, but we would probably serve them a 7-day notice and say, get rid of the car within 7 days and come back. So I think our goal is still always to get the properties in compliance. That's always our goal. So if it's similar, we use our judgment on that, but within reason.
Yeah. And that's always my concern is the judgment. If we got something written on paper and you take away people's opportunity for judgment, then anyway.
Mayor, before we move off of this, may I add something? It's literally on what you're talking about.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Would it be possible, and I guess this would be directed to Mr. Bailey, if we added a D under the ordinance and something about that, giving the judge, allowing a judge to have discretion in a case of a hardship? Couldn't that just be added into the ordinance?
Mayor and council, you can, but then I guess we're going to need to talk about how do you define hardship? Because hardship may be that I don't have enough places to park my car versus I don't have the ability to pay a fine. What is the hardship in that case? So we would need to sit down and figure out how to define that, because that would then that would become another element that a court could consider to see whether or not there was in fact a violation.
And again, it sort of
Never
goes back
mind.
to what I was asking, if we had a much lower minimum on up to the maximum, so the judge actually has that and take out, not has to, but may.
And Mayor, we just created that 400 to 1,000. If you wanted to lower it to 100 or 200, I mean, again, that's up to you and the council.
Yeah, if we had that, I can live with this. I understand what everybody's hoping to accomplish.
Mayor, if I could add just one thing for the conversation. The hearing officer or judge hearing the case also has the decision on whether to accept the repeat offender as to accept our calling this person a repeat offender. They have to rule in favor of the city for the violation to begin with too, if that makes sense. So if someone were to come through that we cited for the repeat offender ordinance, and this fine amount or any fine amount set by the city, by the council, the hearing officer could say, I disagree with the city on this one. This is a hardship issue. I'm not going to find in favor of the city on that violation. Still hold them accountable to whatever code violations may occur on their property, but not accept this violation.
But would it not be cleaner if we just had a lower minimum and leave the $1,000 as the max?
Mayor, again, that's the council decision.
I'm just trying to take away of people being objective where it's out there, so it could be any one of the above. I do have questions over here that I do need to go to. Go ahead, either one of you.
All right. Seeing as you have slide number 8 up, let's stick with that. So what was originally presented was pretty clear, but the conversation has muddied it up significantly for me. So I can't tell you how much I appreciate that. So this is the, quote, proposed ordinance. In A, it says a repeat offender is a responsible person who has been issued 2 compliance orders or citations. But the conversation we've had has been about 3. They actually, under what's proposed here, they become a repeat offender at the second violation. That's what it says. A person who has been issued 2 compliance orders or citations. So why are we talking about 3 instead of 2?
Mayor, Councilmember Turner, after the second violation, they receive a repeat offender designation. We send them a letter, and on the third violation, we would include this as a charge.
Well, that's not what this language says to me. This language says a repeat offender is defined as a person who has been issued 2 compliance orders. So once that second order is issued, they become a repeat offender, as I read it. And then if we continue on down, it says violations must involve the same responsible person at the same address and can include any city code violation. It doesn't say that it has to be the same city code violation. It says it could be any code violation. So they could become a repeat offender on the second violation if the first one was for weeds and the second one was for peeling paint. Now, if that's what we intend, I think we should say that more clearly, or say that's what we intend, and not discuss whether it's the same kind of thing or not. You know, if we wanted to find the issue is visual blight from the view of your neighbors, then all of that stuff is in the same category, whether it's a disabled vehicle or parking in the grass or weeds or paint or shingles, So I think we need to be more clear about that, and we probably need to say, for any violation, if that's what we really mean. If not, we should say for the same violation, but that language either way doesn't exist in what's been proposed. And then my bigger concern comes down in paragraph B. So if written correctly, paragraph A is pretty cut and dried, easily defined because that's what we're calling it, a definition. We get down to paragraph B, and it says, in addition, you could be deemed a repeat offender regardless of the time frame. So now we've thrown the time frame out, and it could include but not be limited to, it could include verbal warnings, courtesy notices, and then compliance orders, parking violations. Well, now we're not even talking about anything in writing or anything that says with any, sternness to it that you're at risk of, being declared a repeat offender. It could be verbal warning. How is a resident supposed to defend themselves against having received 2 verbal warnings? That, to me, turns into a he said, she said situation. And it's like, no, if this is going to be what we're doing, it should be in writing, and it should either be defensible or not defensible. Not like, well, I wrote him and then I told him later, or I told him first and then I wrote him. And then courtesy notices. Where's the courtesy in it if it can turn you into a repeat offender? A courtesy notice is like, hey, I've noticed this. It's not so bad yet. Nobody else complained about it. You should take care of it. and then you come back later and go, oh, now you're a repeat offender. I don't think that that's right. You know, if you're going to notice somebody, you do it in writing, and you do it where you clearly indicate what part of the ordinance or state or of the city code they violated, so they can decide for themselves, is this something I want to fight or something I want to comply with? You know, how would I defend myself against, well, I verbally warned him about code section blah, 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 blah. It wouldn't be possible. So I think we got some work to do in cleaning this language up, maybe run it past an attorney if we haven't already, maybe a defense attorney, see how he'd shoot holes in it, and come up with just better language. The concept I'm okay with, but the language doesn't work. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Overall, I believe you've taken our concerns from our last workshop and put them in writing. And there are some verbiage, I think, that could be improved. I want to address kind of the overall intent and make sure that council understands why we're doing this, the public understands. The number one complaint that I receive personally from residents is that they have a neighbor who is not repeatedly complying with orders, and this is how it works. And we say we go out twice, but it's really not twice. It's 6 times that we go out before a person is put on this notice. They go, an individual, if they call in a complaint on another neighbor, they would go out, they would visually inspect. If they find that they are not in compliance, they would leave them a notice of compliance. That is not a citation, it's just saying, hey, we've been here, we see that you're doing this, and we're giving you a notice. We expect you to clean it up. They then come back 7 to 10 days later, and they say, okay, we want to see if you've got this cleaned up. If they don't have it cleaned up, they issue them another notice of a violation, saying you have now 7 to 10 days to clean it up. If you don't clean it up, we'll give you a citation. They then go back 7 to 10 days later and see if it's cleaned up. If it is cleaned up, the case is closed. That's not the problem that we're addressing. The problem we're addressing is that same individual, a month later, does the exact same thing. So they get a complaint called on them. They go out, they look at the property, they say, yeah, you're in violation. They issue them a notice of compliance. 7 to 10 days later, they come back. And I'm sorry I repeat myself, but I want to make sure everybody understands. This is not just a 1-time or 2-time notice. The individual is then given another chance. They come back 7 to 10 days later. If it's still not fixed, then they'll come back again 7 to 10 days later and give them a citation if it's not fixed. But in many cases, and this is where this system is being gamed, the resident then simply fixes the issue before they get a citation, and nothing ever happens to them. Now, given that they have received multiple notices of a violation, they would be then be put on a list, and they would be sent a letter that says, the next time, not that time, the next time that you get a notice of violation, it will not be a notice of violation, it will be an automatic citation with a fine attached to it. That's what this is attempting to do. And I believe it does that. I don't believe the first part A is a conflict. I believe it's very clear. Maybe we need to address that we will send them a letter about the next time that they receive a notice of violation, but that otherwise they would not receive that classification upon that second notice of violation, but rather the next time that they are issued one, that's when they would be put officially, they would be notified that the next time that happens, these other things would happen to them. Regarding B, I believe that there can be some language clarification on that. And since we are basically following the letter that, a person gets put on that repeat offender list once they have received citation twice, or as it says, it also says compliance order, that we kind of leave it at that. And we say in that there may be times when there are multiple prior notices, including, and just simply say written compliance orders, notice of parking, or notice of violation letters, and remove some of that other verbal warning, courtesy notices. I think by removing that, it may address the issue that Councilmember Turner mentioned, because I think that is true. It does kind of convolute, I think, the message that we're trying to address there. And I believe if we do that, it would make B more reasonable. And I think that the reason that it's in there for multiple prior non-related offenses is because sometimes you do have an individual that maybe gets a notice of violation twice on one item, and then twice on another, and then they just never do quite catch the message that here's the code book, here's a pamphlet that explains what you need to be doing, and they don't understand it or they don't wish to follow it. And I think that gives the code department an ability to recognize sometimes, and I would guess this is far and few between, that when there is an offender who has received multiple, as it says here, multiple prior notices, even though they are on different issues, that we could go directly to citation rather than anything else. And that's really what the purpose of this is, that we go directly to citation, that there is a consequence that is being felt when we have spent our time out there 6 times minimum. We have spent going out to this project or this property, and finally it goes away, but then it just keeps coming back. That's what we're trying to fix, and I want to make sure that everybody understands that's the purpose. I wouldn't have a problem lowering that $400 fine. I think, again, it could be escalating very easily, where you have a $100 or $200 fine on the first time that a repeat offender is found responsible, and then maybe that jumps to $300, and then if it's a 4th time that they're found, maybe it's $400, and it could even go up higher. But I think an escalating scale would send a very strong message that, hey, we're being serious here in Glendale. We're not going to allow people to game the system. We want you to take care of your properties, and we want the neighbors to feel comfortable that their concerns are being addressed, because that's really what it boils down to for me. I have multiple residents that have issues today that are ongoing issues that don't seem to get fixed because they're gaming the system. They're able to fit the character of the law that they need to get by, and that's what we're trying to fix. And I think overall this ordinance accomplished that, but I think a few tweaks would be appropriate at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. I concur with Councilmember Turner. I don't think that if you're building a case, anything should be verbal or courtesy. I think you need to document. And so I would like to see verbal and courtesy notices stricken from that proposed ordinance. I also concur with Councilmember Malnar. I like the idea of putting people on notice, and after the 2 violations, when we've identified them, 2 of the same violations, in a 12-month period, we've identified them as a repeat offender, we send them a letter saying, hey, guess what? You're a repeat offender, and if you continue with your habit and practice, you will be cited and subject to a fine of. I think every time we can document and put in writing, just like a police officer does, we're better off doing that and making our case. I also concur with Councilmember Malnar and the mayor, if you want to drop if council wants to drop the fine, but I also believe it should be escalating as well. So, if it makes the mayor happy dropping it down to $100 for the first offense, I don't have heartburn over that. But repeat offenses, it should escalate upwards. Thank you, Mayor.
Mr. Hugh.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I agree with what most have been said today, and I'm glad, Councilmember Clark, that you're willing that and others to drop that original fine below $400, and it can continue to go up. And I think maybe setting it at the first time 100 would be appropriate. And I understand, and give the judge the ability. It can be 100 to 1,000, but not, starts at $100, and then it's up to the judge to raise it. I think that'd be the fairest way to do it, Mayor.
Do you need to redo this and then bring it back first, look at the final?
Mayor, I was gonna, waiting for the comments, and then what I was gonna suggest is get clarity from the council on what we are bringing back. So I understand that at least 4 of the council members are in favor of a repeat offender ordinance that identifies a repeat offender as we've articulated today, as the responsible party as we've articulated today, that it would be on the 3rd offense in a 12-month period, bringing clarity to subsection A, as Councilmember Turner pointed out, amending subsection B to get rid of anything that was verbal or not in writing. And I will point out that although that language seems to indicate that it's verbal, that it's not in writing, we document in our case management system every contact that we have with members of the community on any case. So there's always written backup to what we've done out in the field. Even if we just issue a verbal warning to somebody, if you will, there is written documentation. And then adjusting the penalties from 100 to 1,000 for people in violation of the ordinance.
Well, and to be clear, no less than 100, no more than 1,000. And allow the judge that freedom, if they get somebody that's bad and they know it and they refuse to do anything about it, let it be 1,000. But maybe the next person flat don't have the money, medical or whatever their issue, let that judge determine that. Question?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I'm good with all of that. I think the important thing is that we, we're putting this in an ordinance and increasing the penalties for the people who are trying to game the system. I just want to clarify, though, that as part of our policy, I mean, Councilmember Melner, and I know you guys, we put in, especially Councilmember Melner, a lot of work on this topic. But will the person be notified that they are now categorized as a repeat offender? Do we send that letter, or is that part of the process that we have? Because I think that is a good idea to let the person know that after the second time, now you've been let, and it wouldn't be a separate violation. It would just be noticing them that you are now in this repeat offender category and subject to this ordinance, and send them a copy of the ordinance or something.
Yeah, Mayor, Councilmember Talmachoff, that's always been a policy.
Okay.
After you do 2 violations within a 12-month period, we send a letter and let them know, now you're a repeat offender. The next offense, we may go straight to citation. So
Okay.
that's always been in our policy to do that.
Okay, and they'd be notified of these, increased penalties and.
Mayor,
We'll
Councilmember
have to,
Talmachoff.
I'm sorry,
Yes, we
we'll
can
have to
add
add
that.
that to the letter.
Okay, thank you.
In that letter, do you also state if they don't have any violations on this particular date, you will no longer be considered that?
Mayor, we do give a time frame that they are a repeat offender, so it is within a 12-month period.
Okay.
And so, yeah, it would have a expiration date.
A date where they're no longer the bad guy.
Correct.
Really not the bad guy, but yeah, basically they're not in a penalty box anymore. Right. Any
Mayor?
other questions? Go ahead.
Yeah, I would just like to reiterate that on the repeat offender, where they're on the repeat offender list and say that they are found responsible, they're charged, say the judge says $100. But I would like to raise that minimum up on each subsequent repeat offender violation. So if they are on the repeat offender, they come back to court another time, that would maybe be a $200 minimum. and on the third time it'd be to $300 minimum. Is that feasible to write in ordinance, Mr. Bailey?
Mayor and council, yeah, we can, I'm taking notes here, and we can try and capture everything that you guys have tried to, or that you've offered today. So yes, we can do that, but understand, based on the comments I've heard today, is that when you do that, while you have asked for discretion in this ordinance for the court, you just took it away as well.
Right.
May I respond? Yeah, yes, we lowered it significantly, and we did take away, we didn't take all away the discretion. The judge has that discretion to either find them responsible or not responsible. So we can't take that away from the judge. The judge is going to always have that ability. All we're saying is we want to have a minimum in here on the first offense, which we agreed to was $100. And all I'm saying is on the second offense, it should go up, because if it's just $100, you know, there are some businesses out there, they're operating businesses out of their homes that shouldn't be, that $100 is nothing, and they can just pay that and go on. So I want to make sure that it has a little bit of bite into it for consistent repeat offenders.
Yep, we understand.
All right. Okay, you good?
Yep. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Last item.
Downtown Campus Reinvestment Project Update.
Mayor, members of the council, here's update number 22 for our downtown campus redevelopment project. And I want to take you through some updated slides and information. As you will see from that the demolition continues to move forward. Hold on a second, I guess we're going to wait till the slides pull up. Go back one there. So as you can see from our last photographs and our last briefing, that there's been quite a bit of debris continued to be removed from the building. You can see a lot of the hardscapes and concrete have been removed as well. You know, we're kind of entering into a second phase of the demolition, so we're kind of going from the take a mallet out kind of approach to, you know, tearing down walls. Now we're being a little bit more surgical. It's a little bit more precise work as we demolish. And so, for example, there's a couple things here on the north staircase. You know, they're taking care as they kind of remove items, because eventually these corners will be there'll be plates that will be extending our floor plate, and so they're preparing them for the new steel members to provide kind of the corners of our building. And so again, this kind of gives you an indication of this moving into kind of a second phase of the demolition. On the electrical switchgear, the building is entirely powered down now. So all of the power on site is being done through generators. And so this project was delayed somewhat while we worked on our fiber relocation project. But now all of this gear has been de-energized. And the picture there on the right, we're starting to remove a lot of the channels and switchgear feeders that service our building, because again, that will all be replaced as part of the DCRP. You know, we've also entered into the phase of the elevator removal. Again, on the right there was an elevator, so we had to take those all the way down to the lower level, then deconnect all of the cables and stuff that operate the elevator. And so that's happening. We're also starting to kind of remove rails around some of these cavities, and that work continues as well. This is the external part of the chambers. Again, you can see we've removed all of the bridges, the elevator, the staircases, and so we're starting to kind of, you know, create what will be that larger stage area for the amphitheater. The next picture shows the B3 room. Again, this used to be where we held study sessions, I think, before my time. You'll notice that we still have all of the wood is still on that, and we're going to be preserving all that wood because the architects feel like we can go in and refinish that and still have a very nice a wall, so we're not just ripping everything out and having to repair things. We want to thank you again for those of you who are able to go on the tour of 3 different cities here in the valley who have either redeveloped or built new council chambers. Again, we visited the city of Gilbert, the city of Chandler, and the city of Goodyear. Again, I know it was a rather long day for most of the council, but we do appreciate the time you took. Hopefully it was insightful. The staff has received a lot of good feedback from the council on things you liked and things you didn't like. And so I think this will provide our design team a much closer set of sketches and ideas to present to the council in the next phase of the design. Again, we do want to thank you for that. Now, just in closing, what's happening right now is we're continuing to prepare documents for permit submission so that we can get permits issued and begin construction. That will take place through the month of May. We're starting to look at the programming and some of the initial way to put a project around the Velma Teague Library, and that study started in April and will go through June. And then we're still expecting to bring back the GMP3. This is the largest single package, financial package for the project to the council. Our goal would be to present you the GMP3 and with acceptance to have it voted on before we do the break in July. Once the GMP3 has been approved, then we will go from going from the kind of demolition phase to the reconstruction phase of the project. And that concludes my report on the DCRP.
Thank you. Okay. See any hands going up? So next item is the city manager's report.
Thank you. Just one item to mention here. We've put a high priority on a healthy workforce here in the city of Glendale. And we have our Glendale Health and Wellness team has been doing a variety of things over the last several years. This is, of course, led by Ollie, who really goes in and works at all levels in the organization and putting together all kinds of, we have walking competitions and we have wellness activities. And so this past week, the Cigna Healthcare Phoenix Business Journal Award recognized the city of Glendale as a finalist for the 2024 Healthiest Employers Award. And this program salutes the healthiest employers in Arizona, so it's a statewide award. It was based on a number of criteria, including kind of the findings that our healthy employees are the most productive. There's great research that show good health and well-being of your employees, that the productivity is significantly higher than the baseline. And so there's a real value proposition to investing in programs around health. And so how does that really then kind of measure up? We'll be sharing this information as we dial this in more directly. But right now, and I want to go back to 2013, 14, and 15, we were seeing every year double-digit increases on what the organization was paying for our healthcare premiums to manage our employees and to manage their healthcare. Every year we were seeing double digits, 10 to 11. One year we had almost a 12% increase. We've been focused on the wellness. This is a journey. It doesn't happen overnight. But right now we believe that our coming year in tracking utilization, that our healthcare costs may be less than 2% in the coming year, well below just the rate of basic inflation. And we believe a lot of this is due to the wellness programs and to our commitment of our employees that are committed to living a healthy lifestyle. So I want to congratulate again our wellness team and all of our employees who are part of that team. We're really seeing great benefit, and again, just the numeric value of actual costs are significant. And then again, it's harder to tell about productivity, but we're pretty convinced based on national data that we're also seeing an increase in overall productivity. And then just finally, just want to thank again all of the members who were able to attend the ribbon cutting today for the court project. As you had a chance to see inside, it really came out great. Maybe just a reminder that it wasn't that many years ago, I think, 2010, 11, 12, that the solution that the city was contemplating was building a $40 or $50 million courthouse. And working with Judge Piazza and his team and the court administrator and all the employees, as you saw, we were able to take an existing building and repurpose it, give it another 15 or 20 years of life. I mean, a tremendous value back to the taxpayers. And as was mentioned, we were able even to turn over some money back into our CIP, which then can go back into our parks and our streets and our roads and the other amenities that I know that our citizens are very interested in. But again, thank you for all those who were able to attend this morning's ribbon cutting. And with that, Mayor, that concludes my report.
Thank you. Anything from city?
Not today, thank you.
Okay, motion to go into executive session? I guess we could do council comments if you really want to.
So move.
Councilmember Clark.
I have none today. Thank you, Mayor.
Councilmember Mellor, you have any comments?
Nothing today, Mayor.
Councilmember Tomachak.
Nothing today, Mayor.
Councilmember Turner.
No comments today, but are we going to do items of special interest?
That's what we're doing right now.
Oh, I thought you said comment.
No, so this is council items of special interest. Okay. Okay, do you have any?
No.
Okay. Vice Mayor?
None.
Okay, I have none myself. Now can I get a motion to go into executive session? I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor vote aye. Any opposed vote nay. Here's the ayes have it, do have it. Motion passes. We're in recess for executive session down the hallway.
So what's up? Oh, good time.